Today I just want to explain kind of a hidden feature that not a lot of people know exists, and when they see it, they don't know exactly what it does. Alright, so to illustrate this, I'm going to load the Genesis 9 dev load. Let's get his eyes in here. Okay, first of all, a little background. Genesis 9 eyes, they're a separate figure, right? They do follow the movement of the left and the right eye, though. If you go on Genesis 9 and you dial those, it is moving the eye. That is because there is an eye bone on this eyes figure, and it's following the bone movement of the eyes on Genesis 9. Okay, so nice and simple. You could create your own eyes, in fact, and do the same kind of thing where you fully weight the left eye to the left eye bone and the right eye to the right eye bone, and then you can have full control over the geometry there and how it behaves. Let's say you wanted to replace these eyes with anime eyes, for instance, that are flat, and you just want it to follow the movement of the head, like the eyes, as it gets shaped, but you don't want it to rotate left and right because anime eyes can often be flat, and you just want the iris pupil to slide along the surface or something like that. Well, what you can do is follow these steps. You can create control bones, and it gives you more control over how this works. What we'll do is we'll select the head on the Genesis 9 eyes, and then we'll go into the joint editor tool, right click, create control bones. Now it's going to put a prefix on here. You can put it wherever you want. We do CB for control bone, underscore, and then I don't want the head to be included, but I do want the left eye and the right eye. And those are the only children of the head, so this is easy. And I hit accept. Alright, now you'll see that I have two new bones created. And the way that these work is all the weight map is applied to there instead of the original eye bone. So basically it took everything from the original eye bone and moved it to this control bone. If you right click in here and go to edit mode, then we can follow the trail a little bit. So for instance, if we right click, say show in property hierarchy for the up down, which is the X rotate, we can look at controllers and see that it is following the rotate of the left eye. Now, like I said, if we want to have control over how this behaves, what I want to do is actually remove this. I don't want it to follow the rotate. So I'm going to do that for the X rotate, the Y rotate, and the Z rotate. And now, as I move the left eye around, you can see that you can't see it very well. There you go. You can see that as we rotate, the eye is not rotating. But if we translate it, it will translate with it. So this gives us the first stage of what we want. Now from here, you can set this up many different ways, and I can't even begin to explain all the different ones you could do. But let's say you were doing a flat eye and you wanted to morph or translate the iris and pupil moving around. You can do that here. You wouldn't do it on the controllers for the CB, LI, or RI. You would be doing it on you would be as a subcomponent of the left eye or the right eye, right? So if we go here and look at the X rotate on here, for subcomponents, you would come in and you could set up a morph, for instance, that gets controlled. So when the left eye rotates 60 degrees to the left, then it would apply a morph. And usually the easiest way to set that up, if you don't want to do the math, is to rotate the eye to that position and then dial up your morph and then right click on that eye rotation and then ERC freeze, and then it'll set up the formula properly for you. And you can do that for each of the directions that it moves so that you're replacing the rotation with a morph instead. And one other note, just to keep in mind, is that while I was showing this all to you, I was actually looking at the control bones themselves and their controllers, but maybe it makes more sense for you to look at it the opposite direction, where you look at the left eye and the right eye and look at their subcomponents, right? So as you can see on the X rotate for the left eye, we've got nothing, but if you go to the X translate, under subcomponents, you can see the CBLI RI, right? So you see the bones and what's happening to them. And so in the case of if you wanted to replace it with something else, you can just come here and look at what is the eye controlling, and those would be under the subcomponents, and then you can just remove them from there and then replace them with something else. So it just depends on how you want to look at it, but you can look at it either direction. So this is just a really handy feature that gives you more control over how something works without breaking translation, for instance. And you can do this other ways too. Like for instance, if you wanted to replace the hand, and maybe you only have 2 bones in each finger instead of 3, you could go in and disable one of the bones, or you could go in and control. Maybe the hands are much bigger than the hands are on the base, and maybe you want them to move differently. You can control. There's actually a scalar value, right? So if we look at translate, Y-translate controllers, I can say, okay, when the eye translates, I want it to only move half as far. And then when I translate this bone up, you can see the left eye bone is down, but this one is only halfway down. So you can control the scalar value so that you can have better control over how each of the bones participates in the posing. And there's just so much more you can do here. Like I said, you can select a bone, and then it and all its children can get these control bones. So you can replace the whole arm, or half the body, or whatever you want to do. But it gives you the ability to then get further control over each of them. And that's what control bones are.